Good afternoon and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. That's me, this guy right here, tell you a story. That's what a griot does, tells you a story, right? And don't believe what I say, because my stories, they're philosophic nuggets, right? They are basically not scripture. There's nothing to take to the bank. It's not, something a Pharisee could mess with. No. It's a pastoral proverb. Something you get out of a Chinese cookie. So where are we today? Here we are somewhere around the 7th of December, tomorrow being the 8th. And December, at least here, started out real nice and slow. Just took its time to get here, which is great. Anyway, so bottom line, people get stuck, right? They get stuck in their habitual actions. And that can be, I have habitual actions. Mine is to talk to people, to try to bring the best out in people, to try to ferret who they truly are because they don't even know who they are. So today I went to two different churches. I went to one church's Bible studies, and basically they, a nice Baptist church, big $1 million church, makes a lot of money, big kind of, public space. And so they had a nice classroom, school thing. And so I went to the old folk, the people who are the deacons and the minister were there, right? And all the people who were thought they're important. And so I didn't really say anything, right? And they just went on and on about this lesson, right? And he was talking about the 10 Commandments and da-da-da-da-da. And I basically stated, and not in front of anybody, but the guy who gave the class, what was going on. And bottom line, I said, so what was that lesson about? And he said, blah, 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 and Mark 4:19, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, it's about the 10 Commandments. Hey there, John. You're coming back to the scene of the crime. Enjoy this beautiful day. Enjoy this beautiful day. Anyway, so, and I said, listen, you went on about all this other stuff. The only real thing is, and I said, who destroyed the 10 Commandments? And said, Moses. I said, no. 10 Commandments were made by God. They're indestructible. Only person who could break them. And if you read the scripture, it states how God, broke them, not Moses. Because, Moses came back and they were all going after the golden calf, etc., the false god. The number one, no false gods, right? So, I said those people turned, God broke the covenant by destroying right off the bat, he gives them, because up until the 10 Commandments, up until Exodus, up until then, they were the 12 tribes. They weren't Israel. But as soon as they crossed over the Jordan, they were Israel. And God was taking them to the promised land. But they so disappointed God. God knew they were going to do this. No, no, no. Who they disappoint? Moses. He put himself between them and God. And that's what we all do, right? We all put ourselves between God and whatever, right? Now, the New and Old Testament are given to us. First of all, they are, were written by monkeys, on crack, using a typewriter without a typewriter ribbon, right? So you really expect that to mean anything? But it does, because it's the word of God. It's the word of God, right? It is the word of God. But you have to read it and let it be the tuning fork to let you have the word of God inside of you, right? So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. That's me, this guy right here. Your griot to tell you a story, right? So I've had different, it's always, the channel's named Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. And I'm going to start experimenting, right? To see if I'm going to start a new channel, right? And everyone loves a conspiracy. So there was a great book by, I don't know if it was Stan Dale or somebody else, but it was called None Dare Call a Conspiracy. It was one of Dr. Quigley's boys. I was one of his best boys, right? And so anyway, so None Dare Call Conspiracy. So I don't know if I can use that as a name of a show, but I'll say no one thinks it's a conspiracy, right? Now, if you don't realize that what's going on here I'm a realist. I'm a businessman. I live in the real world. I make money. no, sorry, kids. This is an illusion. Everything in this place, illusion. And I go to church, I go to all these churches just to be there, and, I'm looking like your basic homeless guy that maybe is a little cleaner than most, but still, right? And this orange coat is, a dead giveaway. I'm not trying to hide anything. You cannot miss me, right? I do that mainly because I have to walk behind a walker, and the sidewalks suck for a walker. So I kind of have to walk on the road. And if people zip by me, the speed limit here is 10 miles an hour. They're doing 45, right? But the cops, it's right there by the police. They don't stop them because they're tourists. They're rich people. And this town is on its last knees, so it's trying to squeeze every nickel out of the rich tourists they can. So they have outside of town the cops waiting for them because, okay, they went through town, and anybody walking across the street, they, will blow the horn and zip right by you. So I'm wearing, so if they do run me over, there's no way they can say, I didn't see that guy, If you run me over and you say, I didn't see that guy, well, then you shouldn't be driving the car. And that's a metaphor, right? And, that's what Jesus did. He talked in Proverbs, he talked in, Chinese cookie little sayings. What do they call that? There's a word for that, they call that. And let me remind you guys, let me put this over here so I don't have to hold it, because whenever I move it, it gets upset. Let me get my reading glasses out here. There's those. There's these. There's that. I think I found them. I got like Mr. Captain Kangaroo, I got his thing. Take these off. These on. See what you guys are saying. Said hi. I'm glad you said hi. Real gray. Mr. B. Simpson. Hey, Bart Simpson? Is that you, Bart? Hey, was that AI? Because there's no one there. Come on, let's get. A month ago, or maybe it's time flies, maybe a month and a half ago, when I was in the deep green, I had to walk a mile and a quarter to get to my neighbor and talk to you on his deck. I basically there was 1 week where every show I got past. What are you doing here? What are you doing? What are you doing? Report message. Cancel. What happened here? Oh, I hit the button. That's what happened. Okay. See, I can't even see the little buttons. Well, maybe they should make them even smaller. Okay, until someone starts saying something interesting, I'm not going to read, so I don't have to have it close to my face, and that keeps me from pushing any stupid buttons. Anyway, so if you think things aren't scripted, I mean, just look at the wars that are going on around us. So why are we going into Venezuela? Is it the fact that Venezuela has more oil than anybody else? Maybe. Is it the fact that Venezuela is right in, our sphere of influence? Back when they say everything, like in South America, Mexico, everything that's our sphere of influence. I forgot what they call that historically. It's not the Mason-Dixon line. It's just the fact that the Russians have stuck, quick, short-range nuclear missiles into Venezuela, just like they did in Cuba. So, basically, Russia can hit anything on the East Coast and Texas. It can take out all of our oil infrastructure, like in less than 40 minutes, right? And leave the whole Gulf of Mexico a nice radioactive stew, right? All that oil, all that radiation, yum, 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 right? No one will be able to go into that place for 30 years. And they also have this little robot nuclear-powered submarine that has no humans on it, but it has a humongous nuclear weapon in it, not a missile, in it. And it has located itself somewhere in the Atlantic, somewhere along the trench. And if they detonate that sucker there, it will make a tsunami that will make the one that hit South Asia, that killed almost 1 million people, look like nothing. Because this tsunami will be a wave that's maybe 40 feet high and have like 20 miles worth of water behind it. And it'll be radioactive stew. And it'll take out the whole coastline from Maine all the way to Mexico. And it will go inland maybe 300. So forget New York, forget Boston, forget Philadelphia, forget DC, forget Florida, forget all the refineries in Texas, forget, they will all be toast for 100 years. And they got that sucker sitting there because Donnie and Hex Wrench fired all the people who knew what they were doing because they were DEI, they were black, they were women, they were trans. Got rid of them. Now they got all the guys who chew tobacco and can't read running, just like Hex Wrench, Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Ooh, I'm so excited. Ooh. Then you look at Europe, right? That war should have never happened. Russia should have never, because Russia was in war with Ukraine since 2011. And there's a rule at the, NATO, that no one can join NATO if they're involved in a war. Because of Section 5, because, somebody attacks you, that means, right? So there was no big deal. Why did Putin wait 22 years to do what he did? I mean, we promised not 1 inch after Poland and Germany get put together. We're never. Hey, kids, enjoy this beautiful day. God bless you.
It is a beautiful day. You too.
It's a blessing. Because you know what God says? It can always be worse.
Yeah, it sure could be worse than this.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, these guys aren't here on Sunday. Where are you guys from? Oh.
Yeah, we just walked from our house.
Oh, your neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, go ice skate. You're scared to talk to a homeless guy. Anyway, so what's going to happen in Ukraine? Well, this is basically Putin has lost all the young people in Russia, right? Putin has basically destroyed his military team. All he's got is nuclear weapons. And he has tried to test a few of them, and they've all blown up in the tube. I mean, that should say something. Either somebody's pointing something at that tube that takes it out before that missile takes off, or they are incompetent, right? But he's got some, when they had the big whoop-de-doo parades of all the tanks and shit they got, Russia has stuff. Like I said, they got this robot hydrogen bomb just off the shore of the United States. That's gonna fuck America like you can't believe, and the world, right? And they have a bunch of, like Patriot kind of missiles pointed towards America with nuclear weapons on them. Because that's why the Russians didn't like the Patriots, like in Germany and Poland, because they can not only shoot down aircraft and satellites and incoming missiles, but they can also hit ground targets with nuclear weapons. It's a can-do kind of weapon system, right? And so by giving them to Ukraine to shoot down aircraft, Ukraine's pretty sharp kids. I'm sure they have half those things aimed at, and they have reactors. Ukraine has had reactors in Ukraine. I mean, that's where Chernobyl was. So they have weapons-grade material. You can bet on it. Because those guys are cheeky monkeys. You don't want to go up against Ukrainians. The Russians are just pussies. So it's obvious the hidden hand, which runs everything. The hidden hand is a subcontractor to Satan. Now, Satan was made by God. What does that mean? I mean, Satan works for God. If you haven't figured that shit out, Satan doesn't make anything. He doesn't do any sins. He just tempts people. He sticks little demonic things like, all those 10 commandments we're supposed to be keeping an eye on. Those are all the kind of, like envy and horniness and greed and the number one, turning your back on God. And that's all produced by demonic possession, right? Who in their right mind would turn their back on God? Now that's the story of Job. Job was a righteous dude, and God loved him for it, so he gave him everything. And then the devil said, really? Watch this, God. Because God and the devil, I'm not going to say they're brothers or buddies. I think Satan definitely is Jesus' twin. But anyway, that's why I can get under your skin. But you should know immediately because, Jesus is all about forgiveness. Satan's all about temptation. So if you're being tempted, well, it's not Jesus. They dare not call it a conspiracy. And what is it a conspiracy to do? To get you to choose to be your best. What's so hard about that, right? Now, you say, and I'm saying, well, guys, that's been me. Been there, done that. That's why I died 7 times. God's constantly giving me another shot. He said, you got 2 more left, Al, but you're doing a great job. Keep at it. That's why I'm talking to you guys, right? That's why I go to these churches. Because, they don't know me too well, do they? You know, so that's why I don't that no one's watching this. I don't really care. You know, that's not my. I mean, you know, Donald Trump. You know, he watches shit because he's seeing if anyone's talking about him, right? So that's what he watches TV, right? The only person I do this for is God. You know, God. You know, I'm doing this for you. Jesus is right here. I'm listening. I'm see that door? That's Jesus' door. Just walk through that. That's forgiveness. That's why I'm wearing this orange coat. It's, hey, everyone. All the people I've been talking to, right? So this small town, they've already twigged who and what I'm at. I've already basically talked to a lot of people. And so yeah, today is the 7th. Tomorrow's the 8th. So I'm enjoying the days going slow. So, no one wants to call it a conspiracy, you know, but it is. Every country, every politician, every banker, there is no logic behind any. Or the wars, you know, the war in the Gaza, what, you know, really? Guys, if you call yourselves a Christian, you read the King James Bible and the Old Testament, right? How many times does how many times does the Hebrew nation screw itself? Like 6, 7 times, right? I mean, truly, you know, like every time the walls come tumbling down in Jericho or Jerusalem, the Jews did it to themselves. They were the last time when the Romans took them out, you know, or the people before them, the Babylonians, right? The Babylonians, they showed up with their army. It was a big army. It was well, you know, dressed. But they just went there and surrounded Jerusalem. Now, the Hebrews, you know, they had it. Their grain things were stocked. They had water. They had animals. They could hang comfortably in that place for 6 years. They were going to see who could wait out everyone. But the Babylonians kind of knew the Hebrews, and within 4 months, the Hebrews started going after each other inside the walls, and killed their army and themselves and I mean, not everybody, but, you know, pretty much it. The eunuchs, you name it, they got them. And then, basically, the Babylonians walked in and took the place. Period. And took anybody who had, like, a good, you know, skill set, you know, if you were a prostitute or a lawyer or a rabbi, they would, like, sorry, kids, Sunday is their day off.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, both of them.
Can we at least put our faces through there and get a
Of
picture?
course you can.
All right. You gonna do that?
Yeah, you can either get behind the fence and take the picture, or
All
just.
right, I'll jump in. What color you want?
Well, that's a good family picture. That's a memory to remember.
That's right.
My dad was like him. Every Sunday he'd put us in the car and we'd go drive around and do crazy stuff. Just so, and I was the youngest. I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
My teenager, I don't want to do this.
Uh-huh. It's a lot more fun when you go to the farms. You got to do it with a cow.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's even better. Where you guys from?
Right up the road.
I'm from here.
Yeah,
I live in
from
Blue
Ohio.
Oh.
I live in Blue Spring.
I did. You know, I did some traveling. Ohio, Washington State, Oregon, all that.
What do you do?
Florida. At the moment we do.
We're caregivers. We take care of veterans.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We
That's
work
great.
for Silver Angels.
Good.
Yeah, I sold a lot of boar's head meats and cheeses in my day. And then,
Before they started poisoning people.
yeah, and then they started poisoning people. Yeah. I got out right the year before they did.
Yeah, you're a smart guy.
Yeah.
when you saw the stuff growing on the walls, you said, I better go.
Yeah, salmonella is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, yeah. But not in a capitalist state.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Exactly.
God
Unbelievable.
bless. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, nice talking to you.
Praise God, praise Jesus.
Absolutely.
Girls, remember you're lucky. You're blessed. Have a good time. And you know what we are in? This is the Advent time.
Biggest part, save my tailbone. Save my tailbone.
Now that's up to you, kiddo. So that's what I do, right? You know, I'm Bob, Sensie Owl Bob. I'm Santa's younger brother. I take care of the naughty and nice list. You know, that's what I do. So come on, you guys, subscribe, hit that like button, do all that good stuff. You know. I mean, I was surprised that 1 week I got up to 7,000 people for one show that was only 40 minutes long. That was pretty good, you know. So, you know, I had like 150 likes. That can only happen when a computer is doing it, right? And then during that week, I got a nice little email. Someone said, "Oh, we really think you're great. We want to back you. We'll make you rich. We'll make you famous." All the rest. Well, I was already those things. And that's what killed me twice, you know. So, you know, I live like a millionaire on $400, right? So, all I have to do is what God tells me to do. You know, it's not hard. It's not like I hear, "Hey, Al, do this." No. You know, you read the Bible, you hear you have that feeling of awareness of what they're trying to say in the Bible. That's not literal, you know. It's a proverb, you know. Like when the rich man asked Jesus, "So, how do I get to heaven?" And Jesus said, "Sell all of your wealth, and give it to the poor." Right? Well, wealth isn't everything. It's just all of that stuff way more. All of that wealth is what separates you from God's love, right? God doesn't want you to walk around naked in a snowstorm. No. You know, you're in the material world. Like, I'm a realist. I'm a businessman. Blah blah blah. Good luck with that. Right. But anyway, I think. Oh, there's 2 people there. 2 likes. Praise Jesus. So what do you want to know? You know, that's the other thing that makes this show work is when you got to say more than "hey." You know, I got my reading glasses. If you put it in bold, I can actually kind of read it without my reading glasses. And I know if you put it in capital letters, you're not screaming at me. You're just making it so I can read. And, you know, the sun is bright here, so reading the screen is, but come on, I'll stick around longer. If anyone asks me a question, like, what does this mean? What's going on? And basically, what's going on in the Gaza Strip is that the Hebrews are doing the same thing. They're the people the Palestinians cannot be killed. Yeah, they can suffer. You know, they are suffering for our sins, right in front of us. And when Donnie goes, "Yeah, I've got to start the peace thing in the Gaza, and you know, I'm going to be president there, and make king forever, and I'm going to turn that whole beautiful coastline into, hotels with my name on it, and a big golden statue of me half naked." You know, good luck with that. I mean, you know things are really screwed when, to understand what's going on, you have to watch South Park. When South Park and The Simpsons are the 2 things that tell you the truth, more or less. I mean, but the beauty, there's somebody, they put something in, I can actually read. Let's see what it says. Okay, I'll get it here. It says, "Do you think reality is a kind of collective dream?" Exactamundo. And it's what it really is. It's exactly what you just said, right? But it's also a sandbox. We are spiritual entities, and our bodies are that, collective dream. That is our avatar. And the sandbox is, we were in the Garden of Eden, right? And we were a spiritual entity. We thought we might have had a body, or, I mean, how do you live in a place where everything is perfect? And the animals, the lion lays down with the lamb and doesn't eat you. Well, it's because it is exactly what you said, a kind of collective dream. And that kind of collective dream is the dream that God was having with us. And we were created as spiritual beings as God's mirror because God exists in the Alpha and the Omega. What does that mean, Sensie Owl Bob? What that means, God only lives in that moment, right there, that second, that nano, that little particle, that's it. There is no past, there is no future, because the past and future are that collective dream. When Moses was up there, and, the first 30 years, he's like, you know, the Pharaoh loved him, but he wasn't his son. It was like, everyone knew where Moses came from except Moses. And then he finds out, he gets really pissed. And then, he kills some guy and he has to get out of town. And he runs all the way into Africa, up into the mountains. And he finds this nice, smart guy. And he's got 3 nice daughters and a nice little farm and goats. And all he has to do in the next 30 years, he's stooping his wife and, just, he was the nighttime shepherd. He didn't really have to work hard, after the sheep were asleep. He was just there with the dogs who were keeping an eye on things, and he could look at the stars and think about shit, right? And the old guy actually had scrolls he could read, and so he could, so that's first 30, Pharaoh. Next 30, shepherd. And then, so around 60 or 52, whenever, somewhere in there, he, bang, one night, there's the burning bush. Moses knew who the brat that was. He wasn't like, oh my God, I'm scared, oh, I'm going to piss my pants. No. He basically said, yeah, whatever. Moses, yeah, what? You have to go to Egypt and break the Hebrew tribes out. And so, why the frack should I do that? Because I'm telling you, it's much more fluid than we've shown to believe. No kidding. It's beautiful. It's getting more prevalent now. Yes, exactly. Because, so we've had, 6 million years of the sandbox, and it's time for us to get into first grade. And that's, if the Bible is, like I keep saying, it's a tuning fork, right? And everything that's going on. So you were correct the mundo about this collective dream. So all these people have turned their back on God. So they have all this egocentric concept. I can be king of the world. And we got Donnie right in front of us. Game show host. I'm king of the world. I got to do all this crazy shit. And it is God doing it. Praise Jesus, praise God, and bless the other. So I was at this new church, really, really, really nice little thing, right? And it had these high things, and it had these, really, stone walls with a plaster over it. Really cute little thing, probably made in the 1890s. Really cute little thing. And they're like the Vatican light. And so they are like, they got the show. They got the candles and the incense and the chimes and the purple everything. It's like, so I'm there. And so I walk in, everyone's sitting in their pew where they normally sit. And I just kind of walked in from the back. And everyone, it was like I was going to disrupt everyone if I tried to get in the middle of the row or whatever. I just kind of walked up past everyone and sat down in the front, where nobody was. The first 3 rows, nobody. That was like where all the high hippie holies, but they don't have any, so I sat there. So, and I sat on the right there, right? And right by the altar, right there, in this orange jacket. And so I can't see anybody behind me, but people kept coming up. Oh, do you need some help? I said, no, I'm fine right here. Here's this book. And I said, oh, thank you very much. But all I need is Jesus. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's yeah. I said, but here's the book. And it was all prayers, right? And so, then they gave me the sheet of what they were going to talk about. So I kind of, Evelyn Wood sped read it. And so I didn't say anything. I didn't get up, get down, turn around, didn't do any of their ceremony, right? And I basically, you know, was sitting there praying. That's all. I was talking to God. I was praying, period. And I was reading their prayer book. It was kind of cool. I said, I could use this. And they had a ton of them. And this sucker was ancient, all ripped up. And so, they gave me the worst one, right? So I took off my hat, took off my, these sunglasses, and I, took these out so I could read the book. So whenever they were reading something that, everyone else had to, turn to page 345 and the priest said it. I know, I went to, Vatican High to be a Catholic priest, so, I could have recited the prayer they were saying in Latin. Two of them I did, right? And but I was like just doing it. And Jesus and God were kind of chuckling. And but I was being very respectful, right? Really not disruptive, but just sitting there, right? And I could feel everyone, the nice people, they didn't care. The people who were on the board, they kept visiting me. Don't you need to be sat? I said, no, I'm fine right here. And this one lady said, and I said, listen, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. And she got a little upset with that one. Yep. Give me the trajectory, the spin, the angle, and the moment. Cue ball. Get canceled. Yep. Exactamundi. So being really, my sweet, lovable self, not the cheeky monkey that I can be. And because, I'm doing what God is saying. He said, don't pick on these people. It's too easy. It's too easy of a score. And they're not being mean to anybody else, right? I really don't do my cheeky monkey thing unless I see someone being mean to somebody else. Like so this one person in another church being mean to somebody else, like, you're stupid, you're this, you're that. And, I basically said, did you get, just out of, because we're talking about the Bible and this and the other, and we're going, you're stupid, you're this. And, I've been giving them things to think about, and they're going, huh? So they can't say you're stupid. They're just kind of going, it's not fair. He's quoting the Bible, but he's doing it in this kind of proverb thing. And And this one person, instead of picking on me, because they couldn't, picked on somebody else. And I said, hey. And he goes, what? Do you have your Advent calendar? Because they were going on how they spent so much money decorating their house. The Christmas tree, the lights, all of that, right? And I said, hey, do you got your Advent calendar? And they said, it costs too much money. I said, what? You bought yourself a Christmas tree? That's pagan. You got Christmas tree lights? That's pagan. You got a Christmas tree wreath? That's pagan. And I just went down the ladder. I said, you are just a pagan. Pagan, pagan, pagan. Pagan, pagan, pagan. And this is like in a church in a Bible study. Pagan, pagan, pagan. You're all pagans. Except this one over here that you're calling stupid. They're not pagan. Well, I didn't go to Bible study the next week. I gave them a break. And the other guys who, there's one guy who's the, not the ex, but he got really sick, so he couldn't be minister anymore. But he goes there, and everyone gives him great respect. Anyway, I saw him, and he goes, Al, you should be minister. I said, what? No, blah, 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 I said, you should. He goes, no. I said, well, hey, just ask God to heal you, and God will. Just say, God, I need to go do your business some more. Take care of this for me. And he'll do it. Come on. That other chucklehead just had this thing about the lady who wouldn't stop bleeding, and the millions of people are touching her, and then, Jesus goes, somebody touched me. And the boy said, yeah, everybody's touching you. And the boys why the boys had to stay in Jerusalem while the other Pharisees and other chuckleheads tried to either kill the new Christians or spread it around as like a new, hey, this is a new cheeseburger, you know. Let's see. Bob, I asked God to heal me. Right, right. And get out of the way. That's all you got to do is get out of the way. Right? If you think, oh, I'm running my life, man, do I know that I'm not running my life? And once I, got out of the way, not a problem. Yeah, I go to the doctors and they say, oh, I can't understand how you can walk. Oh, I don't know why you're breathing. I don't know why you're alive. I'm doing pretty good. I lost 260 pounds and I'm still at 195. I kind of trickle between 190. Grandma, the place is closed. Sunday is always closed, as it should be. Yep, go up to the other pagans. Bless you all. Praise God, praise Jesus. Yeah, baby. And you know what this month is? Advent.
Yes, it is.
Keep praying. Boys, pray with your granny. Anyway. So what else we got? We got 3 people there, 3 thumbs up. That's great. The magic 3, right? So you would think people who come to this place, like it's a shrine, and they've been here before, and the chairs are like in the window on purpose. They do that to show people no one's here, right? But they're so addicted to this. Is a good place, right? And the ice cream is like, woo, off the chart. So this is a cute little neck of the woods of, eastern North Carolina, southern Kentucky, western West Virginia, northern North Carolina. And when I first showed up here in the 68, 69, 70, it was gorgeous. There was no one here. It was God's country. Mount Mitchell had these gigantic, beautiful trees. Now, Mount Mitchell is like a bowling ball, right? All of that mountain, it's because of the paper mills that they put up in South Carolina, and the wind blows right from there, and all that acid rain just fry everything. Just for a few nickels. Anyway, that is really when you look what we're doing to this planet. That is really turning your back on God, right? And so when Noah build a gigantic, the biggest thing man has ever built in the middle of a desert. Why am I going to get trees? Well, you'll figure it out. What are you, nuts? Look at that thing. By 1,000,000 cubits, by 500,000 cubits wide, and 1,000 cubits high, and get 2 of every animal, right? So people go, the end times are coming. Well, I don't think so. Humans are worse than cockroaches. You can't kill us. When that big asteroid hit the planet, we were mice. We're a form of mice. We were a mammal. Whatever mammal we were, I wasn't there, and I'm sure. But, look what we became, And so the whole thing of, Darwin was a smart guy. He was a very religious guy, too. He kind of knew the story. But he'd been studying all of this. He took his nice little trip around the world and studied all these animals, and he kind of realized what was going on. But because everybody wanted to go science, right? Look, we know science, so we don't have to listen to God anymore, right? So he had done this, and people were making fun of him, and he knew he was going to die soon. So God said, listen, you spent all this time doing this. I want you to write this thing, the art of the deal, and, put it out there and tell everyone that they came from monkeys. Because if you read Genesis, and in the beginning, and then there was the Word, and everything was dark, and then there was the world, and then there was a bright light, and then there was, what does that mean? So why did the Hebrew tribes and the Jews still today, and they're not Jews, they're Zionists basically, they're no longer Jews, they're Zionists, and they still are the 12 tribes, there's the Anunnaki, the Hasidim, the Lubavitcher, you name it, just, the Reformed, what are they reformed from? Anyway, do they go to reform school, Anyway, so, it's just, I just love my Donald Trump. Because he's, most empires take 300 or 400 years to, someone asked, the Russian Tsar before they chopped his head off. So how come your empire failed? He goes, well, it slowly, it failed. And then it was over. That's how empires end, right? But not Donald Trump. He's like Band-Aid boy. I'm just ripping his sucker off. I'm going to destroy the empire in less than a year. Here he has, the full. Maybe if he attacks Venezuela, that's it. Because China has put in they're top of the line attack aircraft with their top of the line anti-ship missiles. And they got enough of them. They got more than 50 of those aircraft, each carrying 4 of those missiles. If they take off, the United States puts the Gerald R at 4, and they do. They kind of have it in that nook of the Gulf of America. And basically, those ships are only safe if they can run away, because they can go fast. China doesn't have a ship that can go faster than 20 knots. All their aircraft carriers can't go better than 18 knots at a long run. And they can't go any further than 400 miles from their port. All ours are nuclear powered and can go forever, anywhere it wants, forever, 20 years, right? And those suckers can go 30 knots without even sweating. The fastest thing go is it's a top secret, but they tell everyone this sucker can cruise at 30 knots. That's like doing 60 miles an hour, or 100, somewhere in there, between 60 and 100 miles an hour. If they're not going up against big waves at the oceans, like a lake, they can really book. So they can get to they can go from the east or the west coast of America to wherever the hot spot is, like in a matter of days. The Chinese aircraft carrier, just to go after Taiwan, would take them a week. Once they leave port and head towards Taiwan, you know where they're going, right? Anyway. But America is putting their biggest, most expensive, Gerald Ford, the first one, Jerry, they named it after Jerry. Jerry! Hey, lady! That sucker. Anyway, so, and they got all these, $1 billion destroyers, Aegis class. Problem with those, they're really great. They can shoot a lot of shit down. But you flood the zone, as they say. It's exactly what Iran did to Israel, They first sent a bunch of drones one day, and yes, Israel shot them all down. Then they sent a whole bunch of other drones, and they shot them down. They sent a few more drones, and they shot them down. But they were using the Iron Dome, right? Each one of those, the drone was worth like $50. The missile that shot it down was worth about $10 million. Now, the guy who makes it, Raytheon, was happy about it, more money for them. They're the only guys who make money. The arms dealer, that's what, good old Ike said in the last 45 minutes of his presidency, before JFK was getting on the podium, and Ike was still president. Last 45 minutes, he said, without telling anybody, he went into this secret little closet they have in the White House, where he just has to push a button, bang, everyone's radio and TV goes straight to his little closet, right? For emergency, right? So he does it. He tells everyone, like 3 minutes, hey, I'm going to do this, bang, hits the button, and everyone's watching TV because they're all listening to Cronkite talk about this, that, and the other thing. Ike hits the button. So that means every 170 million Americans are watching TV because they want to see their movie star president get elected, see what he's going to say. Bang, there's Ike. And he gives them the military-industrial speech. Go listen to that. He was right on it. He said, everything he said is exactly what's going on. Like, kids, if you let these morons get control of the country, that's it. You're toast. And they already have it, the thing of 1947, National Security Act of 1947. It was the War Department from the beginning of America to 1947. But Americans after World War I and World War II and everything in between were sick of those wars. They didn't want war anymore. So they turned the War Department into the Defense Department. Right? And we've been the Defense Department since 1947, and Chuckles, not Donnie, but Chuckles, Mr. Hexhead, turned it into the War Department, blah, 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 and he got rid of all the smart people. I mean, you don't need a gung-ho, John Wayne type in the military. You need a guy who can, do algorithms in his head. So they got rid of all those guys. And so now they put the big, expensive boat there with all these other boats. And yeah, they got tons of missiles. They can shoot a lot of shit down. But Venezuela, China and Russia have moved in a lot of shit. And Venezuela has a lot of shit. They have F-16s. They got a lot of shit. They can throw a lot of shit at that force and make it a hazardous day. And after all those boats have shot every last missile they have, China will still have like 1,000, hypersonic nuclear weapons that they can shoot at the American Navy. And if they blow that thing out of the sea, that is 6% of the Navy's assets. That's the Navy's biggest, baddest, super Jerry Ford aircraft carrier. And that's like 15,000 people gone in a day. And they're going to wait for America to go bomb, send in some F-35s to bomb a few little, because there's no drugs being made in Venezuela. It's all coming from other countries. The guy who Donnie let out of prison, who was there for 45 years. Why did he get a 45-year sentence? Because he brought in 100 million tons of cocaine into the United States, like from 1960 to 2020, right? And they finally caught him and took him in, right? Now, there's a guy who really killed a lot of them, because all that cocaine, half of it was turned into crack, which is why everyone's doing fentanyl. I like Chinese. I like Chinese cookies. I like Chinese food, right? Chinese people, I love Chinese people, but the Chinese government is just us, and we put Scotch tape on the side of our eyes. It's really sad. I work for these corporations, and I went to China a couple of times because I had this brainy idea when I was a hospital electrician in the 1970s when CAT scan and MRIs were kind of coming on board. And HMOs were kind of taking over the medical system in America. That would kind of work. Blue Shield and Blue Cross were basically owned by, that were nonprofits owned by unions, funded by corporations. And corporations wanted their workers to be healthy and good shape so they could make them money, right? That's when we were making a lot of stuff. But when they realized they were going to offshore everything and just have the American public to buy the shit and make even more profit without having to pay for it, that's why we had open borders and free, non-tax, all the above. So here they come. So, basically, that's China. So anyway, I went there because they were putting in, 1 year we put in a, $16 million CAT scan machine, and then some other company has a smidgen better, and they take it out and they put a new one in. And what did that do? It bankrupted the Blue Cross Blue Shield because the guys who were in the investment banks were on the boards of that. Then they bankrupted all those hospitals and all those medical systems that were working quite fine and giving America health care. And then they bought it on the nickel. But so I was, a hospital electrician, local 3, IBEW. Now it's one of my specialties, right? Because you really had to have clean, in hospitals you have to have clean current. Can't have the kind of electricity that goes into your house, where the voltage goes from 120 volts to 12 and then back up. And like if you jack up the amps in the high voltage, that light bulb will still light up, but it'll burn the shit out of everything in your house, your radio, your TV, your vacuum cleaner, everything. Fried. It still worked for, a few months, but then it don't work. Oh, I got to buy a new vacuum. How come that happened? Anyway, so I was doing this, and China, they were just coming on board as industrial, and we were making deals with them. And it was just after Tiananmen Square, and all those kids did was make a papier-mâché Statue of Liberty, and basically did an Occupy thing way before we did. And they basically, 10,000 of them were killed right in Tiananmen Square, that's the place where everyone's, the people are supposed to come and talk to, the king, right? And so what did the CCP do? Just rolled in there with tanks and rolled over him, and, the tanks had, they didn't use, a 170 millimeter tank shell. No, they rolled in tanks that had flamethrowers instead of 130 millimeter shells and machine guns, and just barbecued everybody. Couldn't miss them, right? They were all kind of in their little town talking about democracy. Didn't give them a chance to get out. And we were down with that because they were going to make all our toys and cheap shit that was going to be sold in Walmarts. No longer being, I need your advice, Bob. An inventor, okay, I have a groundbreaking tool for the building trade, okay. USA, a good place to launch something? Nah, not really. Basically, how you have to do that, and this is why, because, people go, Donald Trump's a fascist. No, sorry, kids. He's a grifter TV game show host. That's what he is. And his cabinet is a bunch of, the guy, head of the energy department, he's a billionaire. He made his money by having a chicken franchise. When he was do you know anything about physics? No. Did you ever go to college? I got a 4th grade education. Hey, you'll make great. Everyone else who ran the energy department, most people don't realize the energy department is called that because they're the guys who run the national laboratories and build our nuclear weapons, right? And they put a chucklehead like that. And the other guy, the lady who wants to get rid of education, well, it's not fair that federal government tells it. Well, the schools aren't told by the federal government. The government gives money to your school district, so your kid who is black or poor or handicapped or a girl can be educated on the level that rich people get. That's it. It's not DEI. DEI is just like, it's not, black girls and transgendered, pogo sticks and no. But back to your invention. So what you need to do with the invention is first you need to have to document that you invented it, right? So I would say you do that, right? Then what you do is you get a lawyer, a good, patent lawyer, right? And they say, okay, well, we go online and say, how do you patent something? And they give you all the laws about it. And all you have to do is follow all those steps. You don't even need a lawyer. Follow all those steps, put all that documentation into a envelope and mail it to you, um, where you have to sign for it. Your registered mail, right? And you have all that documentation, put in an envelope. Then you put it into another envelope and you close that one. And you keep putting your name and address and everything that that the government says you have to say, on the envelope, right? Do it 3 times. Third one, you take it to the post office and you have them put it into one of their envelopes that says U.S. Postal Department registered mail, and it has like a real intense seal on it, right? That if you break the seal, you know that somebody messed with it before you sign for it. So you and the other thing is to like go get a post office box so that envelope stays in your post place, right? You give them the address of your post box that's in that building. Hey, Madge, here I'm sending this to myself, registered mail, and they know what you're doing. So you fill all the forms out, you give them the $12. They put it in the registered box, right? The next, you could wait till the afternoon, and she'll put the little yellow tag in your box. You come back and say, okay, and you sign that yellow tag. They hold that. They get the envelope. There's another thing on that you sign, and they take that, and then you take that with you, and you don't open it up. You take it to a bank, and you put it in a safety deposit box, so no one can steal it out of your house or any of the above. Bang. So that's the legal, safest way, cheapest way you can prove that that's yours. Document everything about what you're doing, how you did it, in your little shop, show them how you're making it, all of the above. Do a nice little video, put it on a thumb drive, all of the above. So you get all that, right? Then you document that you've done all that, right? And in that safety deposit, all those the things that you signed that the postal guys gave you for that, you get to keep that. You put that too into the thing. But before you put it in the safety deposit box, you Xerox each one of those things from both sides of the envelope, all those little yellow cards, and you Xerox in a place that has a Notary Public, and so you get like 4 copies of the Xeroxes. You get them all notarized. You keep 2 of those copies in that safety deposit box with that envelope, with all those yellow things, and in there, and then you keep 2. And you put 1, you get yourself a nice little safe or a lockbox or something that'll take the thief a lot of energy to break open and get, just to get a Xerox copy that's certified, right? So it has no data or anything on what it is, and then you basically go to a patent attorney. You talk to that attorney, and you basically talk to that attorney like you're going to be my attorney for everything. Yes, your specialty is this, but very good. I will let my dad know. Okay, so I've given you the 411 and how you doing. So I've been, as you can tell, I've been involved in a lot of this, but I'll tell you one thing. I got a patent. Okay. So I worked in a patent library in D.C., right, at the Library of Congress. I worked in a lot of those kind of instruments. And also, when I was, 16, I was in the Cooper Union University in New York City, right there on the east side, which is an amazing university. And, it's not like your daddy went there, you're going to go. It's not like, you got a lot of money, you're going to go. No, if you are going to be a good, fit into the community of that school, and it's architecture, engineering, and art, those 3 things. And you got to study all 3. Engineering, you got to study architecture and art. There goes a guy with a small penis. He had a really shitty car. The window's black as night. And that thing is a quarter mile down the road now. Hey, Mr. Policeman, look at me. Now, I got this orange suit. So any cop that goes by goes, oh, don't worry about that. That's just Al. Batman, yep. So anyway, there I am in Cooper Union, right? And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob here telling you stories, your griot, giving you a little mind candy. And this show is about, don't dare call it a conspiracy? Anyway, so there I am in Cooper Union, right? And I'm in this, I go there with my mentor, who knows the president of the school, right? And that guy owes him a lot of favors. So we go there, and I'm 16. You got to be 22 to get into this school. You have to already been in college. You got to already have, you got to show that you're going to be, because you go to that school, you go there free. Not, if you don't have a place to live, they'll give you an apartment. Anyway. So my mentor takes me there. We go and meet the president, and he goes, Bob, I want Al here to go into the electrical engineering department. I want him to go right today into Professor Dickhead's class. And you mean Richard? Richard Cranium? Yes, Dickhead, right? Really? What? Really? Al, really? No. You'll see what I'm talking about. So, the guy gets on the phone, he talks to somebody, he writes a little thing, says, Al, go down to this lady, she'll sign you in, and you'll go to Dr. Richard Cranium's class. It's on 3rd floor, classroom 12. It's like a lecture hall, right? So, okay. So I go down to the lady, she signs me in. I go up to the 3rd floor. I found the lecture hall. And there's all these guys with black pants, white shirt, black tie, black shoes, white socks, and their slide rule taped to their hip like they were gunslingers, right? And I got a Fonzie Good Times T-shirt, and I got lime green shorts and flip-flops and baseball cap and mirrored sunglasses, right? I got pretty long hair, too. It was summertime, right? So my hair was growing long. Anyway, so, and I'm not a real man. I don't have any peach fuzz or anything. But, I didn't stop looking like a kid until I was 22. And I grew tall. From 11 on, I was growing up to 6 foot. But anyway, so I go in, and the only seat that is there is in the front. No one's sitting in the front row because they don't want the guy to look at them. Someone in America felt there was an America. Good idea. Anyway, so I sit down there, and the whole place is dark-ish, but where the guy is, they got these lights shining on him. It's like a theater. It's a lecture hall. He's got a big, gigantic blackboard with an equation that he just filled the whole fucking thing. 8 zillion equations on there. This goes to this, and that goes to that, and this. Right. Anyway, so I can't see the chuckleheads behind me. They don't say a word. They're like, oh, dickhead, oh, I'm scared, oh. So I'm sitting there, and I'm slunched. I'm just sitting there. And I say, this guy is doing what is known as a field equation, meaning it's basically it's not algebra, and it's not quite the other joke math, but it's something close to an algorithm. But it's the only thing you can do with a piece of chalk, And so I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going, what a freaking moron. Because he's doing a field equation. Now, some people say, what is that? And some dickhead like this would say, well, I'm a physicist, and it's about the field, the guy earlier on, what did he say? He said it very good. Where is it? Right, the spinning thing. You see, rail gun, China made. Yeah, well, we had rail guns in 1960. Well, could sneeze and disappear overnight. Yep, exactly. Let's see. Family, no, Bob. Let's see. Where is it when he said the thing about the spinning thing? Yeah, here we go. Yes, here we go. This is a perfect thing of Mr. Dickhead. I always said to my brother that God is a master physicist. You give him the trajectory, the spin, and the angle of the motion, of the angle of the cue ball, and get So that's, trigonometry, right? That's what this guy got up there. But it's a field equation, so it's like really hokum bullshit. But it takes up the whole frigging, and he turns around. So boys, have you followed me? And everyone's and had clue what he was doing because it was bullshit, 100% bullshit. And he goes, does anyone have a question about this? And they all go, and I go, yeah. I don't even put my hand up. I just get up, and I walk to the blackboard, and I start erasing chunks of the equation. And it's my work. And I'm just like erasing like 90, whatever I could reach, I was erasing. And I said, so these are all the inputs, right? And so here is here's the voltage, here is this, the torque of the generator. And and there's at the end of really big generators, it makes a field that no one knows about. And they got big fence around it. And around that they got a Faraday cage. Because if you walk past the red line, it will tear you apart. And so, yeah, they're closed. So anyway, so I'm describing all of this, and I erased 90% of his equations. So just take this, divide it by that. You can do this in your head. Take this, this, and this. Multiply, add them up, multiply it by this, and then divide it by this. Then you take it over to these two constants, and you add it to the top one, and then you divide it by the bottom one, and so he had his answer as like 19.6604399972222430, and the first three things on the right-hand side of the decimal were zeros, right? Meaning everything else didn't matter, really. And so I came out with the same freaking answer, and it took me 2 minutes. This guy had been doing the equation for the last 4 days. And I said, this is all you got to do. And the guy said, this is dickhead. You're a rich my own. I did that. You know how long it took me to do that? I said, yeah, you're a dickhead. You're a Richard Cranium. That's your name, right? Richard Cranium, dickhead, right? That's you, buddy. And, I'm like 16. He's like 52. He has this award and that award. And he is just losing his marbles. And the only thing he could get out of his frigging mouth was, you didn't show your work. I said, sure I did. I just went through it. But I said, you didn't need that shit. That's irrelevant. And I said, by the way, you're irrelevant. I said, they call this a field equation. Why? Because you do it in the field. You don't have a blackboard. You do it in the field. You do it in the dirt. You scribble it in with your pen on a napkin. That's just how you do that. That's how, if you're a real electrician, and that's what they were called before. I'm an electrical engineer. No, I met a guy in church. He goes, I'm an electrical engineer. He was in the Navy. I knew he was in the Navy because, he had all these lapel pins. So I knew he was an electrical engineer that went to the Naval Academy, and he wasn't in submarines. He was playing with atomic weapons. He was part of the Manhattan. And I said, so, you're in the Navy. Were you in Vietnam? That was my test. I knew he wasn't in Vietnam. He goes, well, I was in it for 28 years and then I retired. So that means he was in there, before World War II. Because Manhattan Project started in the 1920s. And why they called it the Manhattan Project is because Nikola Tesla lived in Manhattan. He had his lab called Mohawk Electric, which is on Hudson Street off of Duane. That's where he invented all the shit. That's where Grandpa Stoll was his electrician. Right? Then they moved, J.P. Morgan bankrolled him, and he went out and made larger models of it out in eastern Long Island. And he turned everything from, Islip to Montauk into a, science experiment. That's where it had Warden clips. That's where it had the time machine. That's where it had the magic window. All of that stuff. The message is held for review. Well, I'm sorry. Anyway, so anyway, I'm doing this, and then the guy he's jumping up and down. Get out! Get out! Get out. And then I'm saying, well, fuck you, asshole. You're just a Richard Cranium. That's my name. That's my name. And I turned to the boys. I said, don't even listen to this asshole. And I'm walking out. I hear him go, anyone says anything, you're out of my class. You'll never be an engineer. Blah, blah, blah. And I turned around and I said, kids, you want to be an engineer? You're going to end up like this jerk off. You want to be an electrician? You'll be me. I make 50. Here it is. So I was 16 in 1966. Here it is, 1966. I am 16 years old. I have my own apartment, and I make $1,200 a week in Benjamins. And I make about $200 on the books to pay Uncle Sam. I walked out. And I opened up the door, and there's Grandpa Saul and the president of this place. And they were laughing hysterically. And the president guy was handing Grandpa a $20 bill. And so it was just a shtick to see what I would do in there, because Grandpa knew I was a cheeky monkey, And so the president said, Al, we have this new department. It's called Alternative Technologies. You are perfect for it. Come, let's go. You're already signed in. The three of us will walk up to Stevie's class, and you'll like this guy. He is like, he worked with Grandpa Stahl. He's worked for Tesla. He worked on Manhattan Project. He worked on a time machine. You'll like this guy. So, we go to that class, and I go in there, and there's a third of the guys got the black pants and a white shirt and all of that. And, but the other half were just like me, in T-shirts and shorts and long hair. And then there was a crew in the back who looked like they were from West Side Story. They had like leather jackets. And anyway, so the door opens. The president goes up to Steve and says, I got a new one for you. And the guy doesn't, go, great. So he walks in. He says, hi, what's your name? I said, Al, O-W-L. He goes, oh, good to know you, Al. Like at church today when I said that to the people, Al, what's your real name? I said, that's my real name. And I had to take 20 minutes to tell the story. What? Right? So, anyway, I go into that class, and Steve says, sit wherever you want to. And I look around, and I see the guys in the leather jackets back there, and they're a little bit more older than the other guys. And I surely didn't want to sit with the guys with the slide rules and black pants and white shirts. And the other guys, they looked a little, they were okay, but I basically went over to the guys with leather jackets. They look cool, I wanted to be like them. And they were like, way over in the back, not even close to anybody else. And they were smoking cigarettes. Well, the guy, Steve, he was smoking a cigar in a pipe. But I knew what marijuana smelled like, so he had that in the pipe, and the cigar was just, it's like a blunt, Anyway, so he's smoking away. The guys are smoking away. No one else is smoking. But anyway, so that room was just full of smoke. So I sit down and, I look at them, they look at me, and this one guy goes, haven't I seen you around the Lower East Side? I said, yeah. He goes, do you know Adam Purple? I said, yeah, he's one of my teachers. He's one of my mentors. He goes, you're gonna fit in fine with us. So they were my crew, my cadre, right? So for a good 4 or 5 months, we were really, there were no tests. There were no quizzes. There were no we had projects, but really nothing you were going to grade on. The only thing you had was at the very end, the last week of class, and we were in my study group. So that was my group, and the kids in the black pants were one study group, and the other chuckleheads were over there. And they had 2 groups out of that. So there were like 4 or 5 groups there. And I was the guys in the leather. And so one of the guys, his grandfather was a mechanic, his father's a mechanic, and they had a gas station / with garage with roll-up doors, and and owned half a block. They've had that in the Lower East Side, around Second Street, off of maybe Avenue B or C. I'm not quite sure. Either one of those. Anyway, so and it was a big space. He's in the back of the gas station. It was like old cars and piles of junk, and it was almost half a block big. And I think they owned it half a block, and they had a couple of apartment houses, facing Third Street, and Stephen was the guy. He was like Tom Terrific. I used to call him Tom Terrific because he was just brilliant. I mean, things would just poof right out of his brain. Anyway, so our only thing that we're going to be graded on is our professor wanted us to think of something that would change the world, right? So all of us, I was, during the week, I was working as an electrician. Everybody, and those other guys, they were all going, these guys weren't going for a degree. They just were taking this class, which was like, okay, you don't have to go to Vietnam. And, no one knew that we were in Vietnam, really, in 1966. So anyway, I mean, if you knew, you knew. If you didn't, you didn't. No one was making a big deal out of it. I mean, no one knew that we were in like 10 other wars, too. Anyway, so like in, Cambodia and Laos and Thailand and in Africa and Middle East. And, we were in wars all over the place. In New Jersey. Anyway, so bikers. They were more than bikers. They were biker geniuses, They were road scholars without having to go to Cecil Rhodes. That was these guys. And that's why I became an itinerant scholar, because I had a motorcycle a little bit when I lent one of these guys, because I made money more than any of these guys did. And, I mean, they were doing okay, especially the guy with the gas station. He did pretty good. But the rest of them were, they did what they did. So, cool book. Yep. Movie 2. I like the guy in Watchmen who was, ink blot guy, who would just tear you apart when he took his little mask off that was always swirling around. Yes, I know a couple of people like that. And they used their skill set. They were assassins. Anyway, so we're supposed to think of, Rorschach. Yep, exactamundos. So we had to, and we would, at least 4 times a week, we would meet up at the gas station and like drink beer, smoke pot, and talk about shit, right? And we would invent, because we were supposed to think of something that would change the world. We had to do it. We had to make it. We had to do anything. Just think of something, right? That was it. That was what we were going to grade it on, right? And this guy said, everyone gets an A or they flunk. No quiz, no test, no anything, no project. Just think of something that would change the world. Basically, everyone got an A. But anyway, so except the guys who really worried about were the guys in the black pants, because they couldn't think of anything. If it wasn't like in the textbook, they were having a hard time. So anyway, it's like the class is on Monday. And we have to get something that to think of. And we're stoned, we're drunk. I mean, I wasn't stoned, I wasn't drunk. I was I was like stoned on like the gasoline vapors and whatever those guys were, was in the room. But the door was open. Anyway, so, we're talking about all kinds of shit. And about, I don't know, summer-ish time. The sun doesn't really set till 9-ish time. And, Tom Terrific there is working on this guy's car. No, he's actually working on my truck. I had a truck, had no driver's license, no insurance, but I had this electric business on the side. So this guy who I worked for Grandpa Stoll. That was on the books. I worked for a lot of other people up where they paid me just Benjamins, right? And this guy had me working on real estate. He had this like, contractor's truck, pickup truck with the rack on top for ladders and plywood and a thing that you could slide shit in, and then all these locked boxes all around the truck. That's a contractor's truck. Ford F whatever. And this, and it was like really, low battery, 20% left. Okay. So I'll end with this story. Anyway, so he's fixing this, and this truck was like, forget about it. But the motor was small. It was like a six-cylinder and a cavernous thing. You could live inside there, right? And so Tom Terrific is inside, and he's like got the top of the engine off, and he's redoing something with the rods and stuff like that. And because it was just like, it sounded like monkeys were inside the engine with sledgehammers, right? So anyway, and I had a real hard time starting. So anyway, so he was like rebuilding the engine, like right there and then. No big deal. It's going to take weeks. He was just doing it. And he's got it all taken apart. And he goes, he's got the carburetor here and that over there. And he goes, you can just see this idea pop up over. He goes, hey, don't we have to think of something for Monday that will change the world? And, you know, if we don't have something, we fail. And, we go to Vietnam. Al doesn't have to worry; he's 16. But the rest of us, we're all in our 20s. We'll be a lobster meat. So I got this great idea. Now Al's truck barely runs. Now I'm rebuilding the engine. I'm almost done. But I mean, when he drives that thing, it's like he's burning coal. It's like going black up. It's not like it's a diesel or something. And he goes, I got this idea to make this thing really run like a top. Have no, and that was the year that they started in New York State having emissions, right? Where they put this thing in the exhaust pipe to say how dirty your car was. So he's got a buddy who has one of these machines. So he's got this. He goes, Larry, you go get this. Bobby, you go get this. Mikey, go do this. And so he gives us orders. And what he has envisioned is to put another alternator on the vehicle, one that charges the battery, another one that charges another battery, that's a big battery, and puts that charge into back in the day, the syrup for soda fountains came in stainless steel tanks that held a compression. Now they come in cardboard boxes. Anyway, so he had two of these tanks, and he welded them on the ends because there was so much room inside there, right? And he welded a bracket, welded another alternator on the bracket, put another, thing for a belt to go around that, put a stand for a big, gigantic, like truck motor, like to start a big tractor trailer, and he puts this tank there, right? And he puts it on an angle, and he has Mikey drill two holes and then thread those two holes and put connectors. The place is closed. Just Sunday, today's Sunday, day of rest.
Yeah.
Yep. So you're going to have to pick someplace else. And Monday, they're also closed, like restaurants. Yeah, I know. Have a great season. Hey, hold your daddy's hand. This is a busy road. Anyway, so they do that. And he gets these two electrodes and sticks them in the tank, right? And then he has two valves, and they're at different heights, right? One is way on top, and the other one's, 20% below that one, right? And then he has two well-sealed hoses, like stainless steel hoses. There isn't going to be any leakage, and the compression fittings that go from the tank to the carburetor are also, there's no leakage, right? So he starts the engine up, it runs like a kitten, and in that tank is water. And those two electrodes turn that water into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is lighter than oxygen, so it goes to the top of the tank. Oxygen is in the middle, water's at the bottom. And that's where the electrodes are, right? So in less than 7 hours, we got this thing, and it's running, and we're driving it around, and I have like 25 cents worth of gas in it. It's so little gas, it's like below the E mark, right? And we drive. We go uptown. We go downtown. We kind of go from one place where there's a gas station to another gas station, and we drive out to Queens. This thing is like getting, 80 miles on the odometer on no gas, right? Basically, just the fumes of the oxygen and hydrogen, but there is a little gas, so it's burning the gasoline 100%, right? So we then the next day, I guess that was Friday night. Saturday comes around. We put about 30 cents worth of gasoline. That at that time. Gas at that time was about 16 cents. This is before the oil embargo. It was about 16 cents a gallon. So we put about a gallon and a half into that, and we basically drive over to his buddy who has the device. We run through the drill. He puts the thing. It basically has, like the things, the printers they have for your receipt for your credit card. It has one of those. This is it, and it says 0 hydrocarbons. This much water, and none of the other noxious things that gasoline makes when it burns. Right? No zines and none of the other shit. So this is, you guys. This thing was, I don't know. I just got this thing. It just says the only thing coming out of your tailpipe is water vapor. Nothing else. That can't be true. And we're going, ooh. So we go, okay, let's try that. We're going to go run around the block a few times. And we're going to come back. We did 4 tests each time. And it prints out the time and the date. And it's like stamped with the New York stamp thing. And so this is like real evidence. And so, very interesting. So we basically, okay, hey, we hit this one out of the... All it took was 2 ounces of marijuana and 6 packs of beer. That was it. And so we still have, a gallon left of gasoline after driving around. So we decide we want to get I said, I know this great. Let's drive out of New York, take the Triborough Bridge, get on the 95, go up into Connecticut, and go right on the coast. I know this great lobster fish restaurant. It's a fish store. But, it's DiMartino's fish store, right? So we drive all the way up there. We have a nice big dinner for about $1.50, and we drive all the way back. And now our gas gauge is like, it was like, didn't even get to a quarter tank, with a $1.25 worth of stuff. I mean, maybe it was above, but now it's below a quarter of a tank, right? And it wasn't like resting on the peg of empty, but it was just a RCH above it. And RCH is a technical term. RCH stands for red contaire. So that's a measurable distance. So anyway, we're all ready, right? So we don't put any more gas in the tank. We keep it, because I live just a couple blocks. That's where I parked my car, was in the gas station's, right, thing, because it had a gate, right? So and we drive. Did we drive? No, we left it there because Cooper was only 3 blocks, right? So we go to class, and all our classmates in their little study groups, they all have dioramas and all kinds of things to show their thing, and Steve goes, yeah, that's good, okay, you guys did okay, you guys, okay, that's right, and I don't know about this, you do better, come back, you see me at the end of the week, you got to do better on that one. Okay, you chuckleheads, what do you got? And we go, well, we're at the end of the class, so dismiss the class, we have to walk down where our prototype is. He goes, you got a prototype? I said, yeah, we got a prototype. And not only that, we got everything documented, just like I told you guys how to document a device, right? We did all of that, right? Yeah, we're ready. Come on. So he goes, okay, this should be interesting. So we walked the 3 blocks, and he's puffing away on his pipe, and everyone else is puffing away on their puffables. And this is Lower East Side, no one cared. So we get there. There's my red contractor's truck, and he said, okay, so what's up with that? He said, You'll see. And he goes, he starts the motor up, and the motor sounds great. He goes, great, the motor sounds great. So what? And they said, look at the gas gauge. And the guy goes, so? How much do you think this truck should be able to get on that gas gauge? And he goes, well, this is an old Ford, F blah, blah, blah. It's heavy, it's big. What's it got in? A 6-cylinder? Okay, probably 30 miles, right? And it'll start huffing and puffing after 15. And I said, great. And this had a gigantic seat in it, right? And everyone was like, it's like a living room couch, right? So I'm not driving, but Tom Terrific is, because I didn't have it, I could drive this thing all over New York. I had no driver's license. I had no registration. I had no insurance. I did have a registration. I had a bill of sale. I had the title so that I didn't steal it, right? Anyway, so we get into the truck, and we drive all the way to Connecticut, which was like 130, 150 miles, right? One way. Go there. And before we leave, the guy goes, okay, so that's how much gas that gauge has. And so he has this, this guy's amazing. He had this, I don't know if you ever seen, today we have tape measurers. He had this one that kind of got up, and it kind of, so he could get it down into the gas tank to the bottom and pull it out. So it said it had that much. I only have 10%, so I have to finish the story up right now. So we go all the way there, all the way back, and it still says exactly what it said. So we've done almost 300 miles on that much gas after a very nice lobster dinner. He goes, okay, that's okay. What's under the hood? We put it up, and he looks at it and said, whoa, that's kind of cool. And he said, so, this, that, so you're making hydrogen, oxygen, putting it in the carburetor, spraying the gasoline 100%. We showed him the thing saying that we drove it, what the gas machine said that there was only water, baby. He goes, that's great. What are you going to do with it? And we said, we're going to we got it, just like you told us how to patent it, we got it all down. He goes, good. What you need to do is take this all out and destroy it. All that patent stuff you got, destroy it. And we go, what? He said to change the world. He goes, so what, you did this Friday. You're smoking about 1.5 pounds of marijuana, and you had already drank 6 packs of beer, right? That's how you did this, in an altered state. And he goes, you think you chuckleheads are the first to do this? Everyone who's tried to do this has ended up dead. So, why do you think I teach? You think, no. Of all the stuff I've done, they pay me nice not to say anything. I'm always protected, and I can go do whatever I want, and I teach chuckleheads like you. That's my real job, to catch you guys to not go over the red line. So that's why I'm leaving the story. And don't believe a word I say. Remember, I am your griot. Love you guys. See you tomorrow, man.